you end up getting brought back as a producer in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
How did it come about? What was the kind of factors that led to you going back?
I think Joey Mercury was a coach at the time, and he was getting ready to go from, they were in FCW, but a coach there to a producer on the road, and they needed someone else. And Joey, he and I are good friends, and he recommended me. So when they hired me, they told me, well, you're on a short list of who we wanted, a short list of one. So,
and at that point, when you go, Triple H is in charge of NXT by this point, right? So what's it like working with him now that he's kind of spearheading this thing rather than him being a co-worker?
So if I start back, when Linda was running for Senate, the opposition started saying they put Eugene, who has Down syndrome's head in the toilet and poured paint on his head and beat him up and made him look bad. So I had to go I didn't have to. I went and did I stand up for WWE video. Mm-hmm. And Triple H, I didn't know who was going to be there producing it, but he was there producing it. So sat with me all day. And then went and got lunch, and he sat there and talked to me, for a good hour, whatnot. Looking back now, I think that was kind of like an interview. I maybe not, but I think so. And then they brought me to FCW for a week as a coach before they transitioned to the Performance Center. But I was in that debut class at the Performance Center, and I didn't know Triple H real well. I mean, we worked together, but still kind of an intimidating guy. So after.
And then when you were there as a producer, some of the names, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Braun Strowman, Chad Gable, that you worked with. Do you have any kind of highlights or stories from any of them, from working with any of them that you could share?
I mean, all those guys worked hard. Chad Gable's phenomenal. All those guys worked hard. I remember some of the guys that had been training at the Performance Center had been there for 2 years without having a match in front of a live audience. And those were kind of the guys that I trained, the less experienced guys that were just getting there, or if they're just new hires with some experience. And I said, I think we should have a live event in the Performance Center with the inexperienced guys and have the experienced guys be the crowd. And they laughed at me. The Performance Center is not a place to run live events. We will never run live events here. And then we had that live event, and it was the most excitement I've ever seen inside the Performance Center when I was there. Because some of the coaches made like a little bit of a cold blanket over everything. But everybody had a good time. And I felt like the younger card guys learned. And Chad Gable and Braun Strowman were a tag team. They were bad guys. But it was like, what's the book, Lenny? Is that of Mice and Men? Chad Gable was the one, the bully, and Braun Strowman was the more of a babyface character. And it worked well.
It must have been cool as well that you're there, you're producing, and the women are getting taken seriously. They're getting because when you were there the first time in WWE, they weren't taking it seriously.
Well, everybody says that, but you got to think Victoria and Trish Stratus and Lita were up there. I mean, Jacqueline was up there, and those were kick-ass wrestlers. There was a period, I think, where it became a little more like what was the TV show with all the women in the suitcase and pick the number? Deal or No Deal, yeah. It used to be like that, where they just wanted pretty women and more like a models and just,
the diva search. Yeah. So you told a story that I just have to ask you about, and it says you're the producer, and there's a story in a bathroom with a WWE executive, Mark Carano. Could you tell that story, please?
So, we're in Louisville. This was, I think it was between my second run and my coaching. I think that's when this was. And one of the WWE talent wrestled on an OVW event, and afterwards we all went out to eat. Carano was handling the WWE talent. Danny Davis and his wife were there. I was there with my wife. We're all sitting around eating, and it was like a steakhouse. Steakhouse closes, but they let us sit there and continue drinking. And all night, Carano kept commenting on how pretty my wife was. Oh, she's so beautiful. And everybody was drunk, except for, I think Danny was driving. They had a driver, and I wasn't drinking either. I was driving. And Carano all night, And so finally at the end, my wife goes, I'm going to use the restroom. So she goes in the restroom, and all of a sudden I can't find Carano. And I go to the women's restroom, I try to push on the door, and it's hard to open. And he's inside the restroom with his hand on the door and his foot trying to reach across and grab her, and she's got her back against the wall. And I go in there, and he scoots out. And I didn't appreciate the situation at the time, because I thought, just him being a goofball. I didn't like it, but I might be able to go back to WWE, so I can't say too much, right? I can't beat the hell out of him right here. But I think it freaked out my wife because she said then if she goes into a public restroom, she don't know if somebody's going to, come in and barge in on her. It's really traumatic.
And it's crazy to kind of hear that kind of, in light of everything that we've heard recently, that like, how many other stories are there of somebody who's felt uncomfortable and for whatever reason, for a job security or whatever, has not been able to say anything.
I think those stories are starting to come out. I mean, even like some of the guys, I think this was FCW, when one of the coaches was being a little bit hard on everybody, they complained to HR. And the first thing HR did was tell the coach, and then he went right back and yelled at him more. So it was kind of a tough climate to be in.
I mean, you've talked on your YouTube channel about the Vince allegations and all that stuff, but I mean, we're now in a position where in the next year or so, Vince McMahon will have no involvement. He'll have sold all his stock and shares. I mean, you worked for him years ago. Did you ever expect that Vince would just no longer be a part of WWE and it would be under these kind of circumstances?
No, I thought he passed away at the head of the ship, I don't know. It's crazy times. Because everything's still allegations. And when you break it down, everybody talks about all the salacious information in the lawsuit. The lawsuit's about non-payment. If he would have paid the NDA, I don't think any of this would have happened. But he's got 5 women that he's got NDAs with. And the first time I heard that, I'm like, the whole family was on the Howard Stern show admitting that he cheats on his wife. And like, so he can't be signing NDAs just because he's cheating on his wife. He's got to be doing some sick stuff. Now it's starting to come out that maybe he is.
I mean, it is weird when you kind of watch back on TV some of the stuff that was on TV. I mean, generally, was there ever a mindset when, Vince is doing all this crazy stuff on TV, like, what is he doing? Or was it just that's Vince being Vince? Like, what were people backstage thinking?
2 words, Katie Vick. And then JR's colonoscopy. The hand, Mae Young's hand. I heard that the hand has grown into a full arm. Yeah, some of us were like, what is this? What does this guy do with wrestling? Like, what is this? And the only thing that you can think is he's back there just laughing it up.
You told a funny story about you're going to go into the t-shirt gun angle just after Eugene debuts, and Vince has a proposition for you.
This is what Vince asked me to do for $1,000. So Raw comes up on TV. Eugene gets in, gets the t-shirt gun, shooting it around. Regal's trying to get him. Come on, come out. I shoot Regal in the nuts. Funny. We go into the next segment. Well, we're walking through it earlier in the day, and this t-shirt gun's got power. And it's shooting like to shoot way up there. Boom, boom, boom. One of the interns walks up and he goes, Vince says he'll pay you $1,000 if you can shoot JR's hat off of his head live on TV. And I looked over at the area where the announcers should be. And I looked, Vince was on the floor and his glasses were down. He just made eye contact and just gave me just a little like that. And then went back to, okay. So I get live on TV and I shoot it. And if you watch the video, you can see they put the camera on Lawler and JR, and it went over Lawler's head, but you could see it. And I was in the area. What I said that I should have done was go to JR and say, hey, listen, Vince is offering me $1,000 to knock the hat off your head. Why don't I just shoot it in your area and you jump and knock the hat off your head, and then I'll split it with you. Hindsight's 20/20, I guess.
You were there live when Undertaker's streak ended. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that experience live? Something that nobody thought would ever happen.
Yeah, David Flair had some tickets in the arena at the Superdome, and we were in the green room, and we're gonna walk to where the seats are. So I think the match before was Cena and Bray Wyatt. We start walking. Superdome's a big place. We're walking. Superdome's a really big place. I think their match was 20 minutes or so, and by the time they're going to the finish, we're getting to our seats. All the way around this big sucker. And Undertaker and Brock. And I could hear the crowd around me. Man, if Undertaker's not going to lose. If he loses, I'm quitting watching wrestling. I'm going to leave right now if he loses. And then when that 1, 2, 3 happened, I mean, really, it's like time stood still. The air was sucked out of the building. And nobody's like, what? What was that? And then it was that slow, that 21 and 1. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. And then people just got upset about it. And the girl, I think there was a 10 woman tag on next, and those poor girls had no chance of any. People were hot about it, but it was an awesome experience. I mean, to be in there in the emotion of Undertaker, the streak ending, which I think it should have. That's what the top guy does when you're getting your times done and you're getting out. You hand it over to the newer, younger guy. Some people say Undertaker should have retired with the streak, but I don't think that's good business.
And what was the kind of reaction, of people in wrestling when it happened? Was it like you say, kind of, well, he should lose it at some point? Like, what was the reaction?
I think most guys didn't think he should because it was such a big feat. I remember Terry Taylor was saying to me that he was on the headsets, and normally they'd be like, all right, they're going home, 3, 2, here we go. When they started to go home, it was just dead silence. So I don't know who knew and who didn't know, but I think there's only like 3 or 4 people that probably knew.
Yes, the referee didn't know, right? That was one of the.
I would assume he did, but maybe he didn't. I mean, it could have been Vince and the producer back there.
Last question for you: what out of all your career, what's the favorite memory, the favorite moment?
Well, it's kind of difficult to find out a favorite moment. I mean, I've been in the ring with The Rock. I've been in the ring with Hulk Hogan. I got an action figure. I got a T-shirt. I even pinned Vince McMahon one time.
We'll talk about that. Talk about pinning Vince McMahon. That's an odd accolade to have.
So this was, when I referenced earlier, Vince and Shane was in the angle with DX. They put Eugene's head in the toilet, poured green paint on my head, and this is when Raw was 3 hours, and this was early on the show. And then the segment in the ring was at the end. Eugene against Shane and Vince. And I had to sit for 3 hours with that green paint, like regular wall paint. And it stained my hair and clotted. And it was like the horriblest thing. But we go into the match. And they're going to pick on Eugene, blah, blah, blah. DX comes out. And then, I don't remember what the exact finish was going to be. But they were going to, Vince and Shane were going to beat Eugene. And it was Shawn Michaels. I said, well, wait a minute. You're putting his head in the toilet and putting the paint on him and you're beating him up in the ring. He should win. And Vince's like, oh yeah, you're right. So Vince's like, I just schoolboy him when the time's right. I just did it 1, 2, 3 and scooted out. I mean, I don't remember much about after it, but to have that on videotape, to have that on recorded is a feat, because I don't know how many people pinned him on Raw and who was the last one. Might be me, I don't know.